Hello, everyone. Can we kill the music, Garrett? Or does that have to be done over here? All right, cool. Well, welcome to Edge, everyone. A little bit about Edge. Edge is a self-custody exchange platform where you can buy, sell, and exchange crypto and Bitcoin and all that good stuff. We do in-person help. I believe we're the only wallet or mobile application that's in the crypto world that does offer in-person help. That is every Thursday between 9:30 and 11:30 downstairs at Portal. So if you ever have any questions, especially after tonight, because I'm sure everyone here will download Edge and try it out, you can come down there and ask any questions tomorrow morning. We are hiring. We are hiring a senior front-end developer, a QA agent, and a UI UX designer. So if you know anyone, if you are any of those, get a hold of us. Talk to me. Talk to anyone in Edge shirt. And that means I'll hand it off to you. Kevin, have a good one.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to talk about the Metaverse, the building blocks and how it's going to be built out here in the future. I have a loaded panel. I'm super excited to have everybody here. So the first thing I want to do is thank you so much for showing up. Let's get started. So guys, why don't we just go down the line? Tell me a little bit about yourselves and what you're working on.
Cool. This thing on? Are you spot?
Good.
No, why don't we start? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Lawrence. I'm the founder at NFTY Labs. We've been building NFT technology since about last summer of 2020, and stoked to be out here with Chainlink and Edge.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mike?
Hello, everyone. I am Mike. I am the community lead at EthSign. Now, EthSign is a e-agreement signing and self-executing platform built on Web3 and with Web3 technologies. We're proud to be partners with Chainlink and use Chainlink's technology to power our smart agreement framework. And thanks to Kevin for hosting and moderating this event at the lovely San Diego.
Thanks, Mike.
Is this thing on? Yep. Okay. Bobby Petersen, VP of Marketing at Permission.io. We are in the business of enabling people to earn from their data. So whatever use case that could be in, for us, we're starting a advertising platform called Permission Ads, in which an individual, when engaging with a brand online, will get compensated in crypto for engaging with that brand. So instead of Facebook or Google or any of them making all the money, the individual who's actually engaging with the brand will be compensated, in that one-on-one relationship. A permissioned audience will develop, and so that's what we've been building. And excited to be here to talk about NFTs and everything to do with the Metaverse.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. I think the biggest thing that we should jump right into is, how did you guys fall down the crypto rabbit hole?
Cool. Yeah, I guess I'll get started. So my first kind of entry into crypto, or at least learning about Bitcoin, was back in like the Ron Paul era. I was like really big into hard money, silver and gold, the end of the Fed movement in 2008. Shortly after Bitcoin got, released in 2012. My buddy was living in San Francisco, and he was kind of deep into the Bitcoin space. I was still in university, and I was attempting to buy Bitcoin ATM machines, but it was like a fruitless endeavor. I really didn't have the capital for it. And just kind of stayed plugged into the scene, and then not till 2015 did I go full time into crypto through a family friend. He came over Thanksgiving one holiday and was like, dude, you just need to get all into crypto. So I took like what kind of little money I had in my first job after college and invested into that. And then as like the space started to grow, I created a Twitter account. And then I had the chance to move from my hometown of New Orleans to Southeast Asia, to Singapore, and stayed out there for about 2 years, from 2018 to right at the start of 2020, right before COVID. And I was out there working in blockchain and in the space. So it's kind of been like a long time before I fully got in. But now, founded Nifty with my other co-founder here, Ty, and we've just been heads down building in Web3, which is what I'm most excited about.
That's really cool, Lawrence. And that's a good name, by the way. I love the NFT name.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, so I really got into crypto late 2019. I got into crypto. So I'm a student at University of Southern California in LA. So I took this class, and it's a blockchain class. So basically, the whole class, whole semester, we learned about Bitcoin. I took it as a general requirement, not a requirement, but it's a general elective. So I took the class. I think it's a very interesting class. And I looked into more of the basic layer, right? So like how Bitcoin networks works and how Ethereum works. And I just found the crypto rabbit hole and worked with Potter on EthSign, who's like a longtime friend of mine and who founded blockchain at USC, which I also helped lead. And yeah, we're proud to be having one of the largest crypto organizations, student groups, of Southern California, and it's been nonstop since then.
So for me, I think the entry into crypto is not all that exciting. I had actually it was through permission. So when I had heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all that, and but getting involved in permission. So I kind of come from a background of marketing, user acquisition, entrepreneurship, bought and sold, started several companies. But as I came into the space, it was more about user acquisition for the crypto platform. The crypto part of it was, at the time, marketers in crypto don't really exist. We're still trying to make a name for ourselves in this industry. But at the time, that you weren't a marketer in crypto until you were, and so that is how I got involved. Just really starting to trade and get involved with Bitcoin and Ethereum mainly, and then now I'm just down in the depths of the rabbit hole of DeFi and all of the degenerate things that we do on the internet with maximum APYs. But the more interesting entry point for me was into NFTs actually, which is my friend calls me one Sunday and he's like, and he's one of my friends that's got me pretty involved in trading and into the crypto space. And he's like, hey man, there's these axes, there's these little baby things, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna buy some of these babies, and then I'm gonna breed these babies, and then they're gonna produce offspring, and then I'm gonna sell these babies and make some money. So I'm setting up a business and I was not following like every other word he was saying, but it was very compelling. And so therefore I decided to build an Axie breeding farm of my own. No NFT experience whatsoever. I think Axies is maybe some of everyone's first. And I learned how to breed the best Axies for maximum ETH value. And so I jumped in head first with Axie Infinity on the NFT side of things, and then kept going on to all the OpenSea drops and even Solana and Cardano. But that was more really game changing for me. That was super exciting, and just jumped into NFTs just head first, and that was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, good stories. So what are NFTs, and why are they so much more than just a JPEG?
Cool. Are we going to just go down the line or round robin?
Yeah, however you guys want. Free flowing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So NFTs are more than JPEGs. Yeah, that's a pretty good argument, I would say. NFTs, I think of it as just like a unique identifier to a digital asset on chain. So essentially, it's a one-on-one, and you could prove that it exists, and there's nothing else like it on the entire blockchain. From there, you can abstract value to that NFT by depending what the metadata attached to it and who created it was. So a lot of people make the comparison. It's like a rookie card of a Michael Jordan or something, which it definitely can be. But the future use cases of NFT can represent ownership, fractionalization. It can represent art. It can represent a lot of things. I think the actual concept of having a one-of-one on chain that you can prove and verify is what an NFT is. But there's a million definitions, and mine's probably not the best.
I think that NFTs brings a lot of possibilities to use cases to the real world, right? Like JPEG is a JPEG; it's just a file. But NFTs, you can actually have ownership of whatever that file might entail or encompass, right? So like, say it's a piece of patent, you can move that on chain and make an NFT, and then that patent belongs to a specific certain identity that's on chain, and you can also link the identity with via some KYC process to make it, associated with the real world, so that and with that you have a lot of imaginations of what NFTs can do, other than just a JPEG can do, such as you can have ownerships of things in the Metaverse games, right? Because in traditional games you own something, but how do you prove that it's actually yours? If your account's lost, you don't actually own it, and everybody owns the same stuff. So how do you feel unique of the stuff that you own? And NFT is the way you actually to do it. And there's many different ways. You can. There's popes right now where you can get an NFT and prove that you attended this event. And the more popes you collect, it means that you are more active participant in the community. So a lot of things that could bring into imagination. Think about a JPEG. It can do all the ownership side of things that NFT enables you to do, right?
Yep. I think the unique characteristics of an NFT are that it provides utility and it's uniquely owned. I think that's the most critical part as we move forward and talk about the metaverse. I think the metaverse can be taken over by the same Web 2 parties if NFTs are not very integral to the success of in the installation of those platforms, because that is what creates ownership for the consumer and the individual that are participating in these metaverses or in these games. Is that we have to own these, and we have to empower everyone to own these in order to distribute the wealth that way. And as long as we're doing that, and that's why I think NFTs are critical to the development of the metaverse and the metaverse, as a whole, is that we have to preserve this. NFTs help us to preserve what Web3 was all about, which is the product becomes the producer. The individual is, we need to protect them and armor them with, the way to navigate it, or else, the big dollars and budgets will come in and wipe us out, right? And just create the same thing that we have right now. So I think it is the most critical piece to the success of how these, metaverses and ecosystems play.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think your guys' answers are on point as far as NFTs just being a wide, broad definition, right? You talked about POAPs and how you could just have proof of attendance be something, say, hey, I was here tonight, So I guess it brings us to the next question, which is, why are the NFTs necessary for building this metaverse?
Cool. So I think kind of bouncing off what they said, Mike and Bobby. So I think NFTs, if you think of it as building blocks of a new web, is one really cool way to do it, because essentially you can abstract any virtual experience or any file that's virtual into building blocks of NFTs, and those NFTs can represent ownership. So imagine it like Minecraft, right? It's all built off of blocks. In a kind of dramatic example, each block could be an NFT, right? And then essentially those can represent ownership, and those can become liquid ownership, so you could sell those blocks for actual money. Kind of the examples they were saying is, if Meta comes in and just dominates the metaverse, essentially that is just a Web 2 corporation coming in, making people join these experiences that people might have a little bit of fun in, but at the end of the day, 99% of the value is being extracted from the consumer and kind of just trickling straight up to the couple huge FANG companies. On the opposite side, crypto was kind of its ethos, and the Bitcoin white paper is the banks. And if you extrapolate that out, it's the big corporation. It's the metaphorical the man. So the more tools we can build to onboard people and build products that essentially are built off of like foundational ownership, then that's really cool, you know. So essentially, like the metaverse, like the same phrase is like not your keys, not your crypto, kind of like not your digital assets, not your, I don't know, insert tagline there. But yeah, I think it's super important that NFTs become super big, and essentially what that allows people to do is not take away your assets that are valuable. Because once it's in your wallet, a big corporation can't take those assets from you. If you build this really cool experience in like Meta's metaverse, it could be this like awesome like building you spent 20 years building or 20 years in game building, like a couple weeks. Essentially at any point that could disappear, or essentially they can just like take that from you. Essentially this is like your chance to have like the deed, like you would with the house, but take it into a digital world. So like as we experience like these shifts where it's like ads on websites might be NFTs in the future. You know, when you think about it like that, there's a lot of value they extract from you right now, and NFTs are kind of like our best chance to kind of like build a new like metaverse and just kind of web in general where, you know, it can represent your ownership. Like, and one more example would be like, you know, Uniswap version 3, essentially your underlying liquidity in these dexes are represented by an NFT now. So essentially this one-to-one asset represents your underlying assets in the liquidity pool. And that's going to just be super important to use that NFT to represent underlying assets that you own. Otherwise, if you don't own it, the company does. So I think it's just super important to like double down on brands that are building like Metaverse Web3 truly, and not just like these AstroTurf experience that these big companies are going to roll out over the next coming years.
When I think about Metaverse, right, like you always kind of want to bring real world business value to the Metaverse. So like Metaverse by itself doesn't mean anything new if it's a closed world or doesn't have any ownership standards, right? Because like we all played like Minecraft and whatever games before, and there's nothing special about those. But what's special about Metaverse games? You see that big brands are already coming into the Metaverse games and building things. I mean, bring real tangible values into the Metaverse by building Nike stores, Adidas stores, Louis Vuitton stores in-game. And actually, via those in-game experience, in the future, maybe you can buy an in-game NFT via some VR headset and buy your products from there, and they ship it to your home. So that's a whole new level of buying shopping experience online, right? And another thing is that, you know, there's this game called Crypto Voxels where you can buy lands and build stuff on those lands, right? And those lands that you purchased on OpenSea via NFTs, because per land is an NFT with your associated with your crypto address. Once you purchase those lands, you buy the land and you actually have the right to revenue and build stuff on those lands, right? If you go through some DAO like the Metaverse advertisement DAO, where you like you allow them to build, basically delegate your operation rights to the DAO, and like they build some billboards on it and attract traffic and distribute part of their advertising revenue to the land. There you make some actual money from land you own virtually, which has never been done before without NFTs. And NFTs is a way to, I think, enable that, right? And it's an open world, which means that anybody can buy NFTs and build stuff and use your wildest imagination to monetize what you own, which is really the cool part about the Metaverse and NFTs about this whole thing for me.
Yeah, so I think I sort of addressed why NFTs are critical to the metaverse space, but I think as it relates to what we do, permission ads, we're driving and showing people ads that they are then compensated for with their time and intention with our crypto ASK. So we got ask permission, which coincidentally happens to be what Tim Cook says all the time when they're talking about installing the new rules about every app developer needing to ask permission. And he's like, brands must ask permission. And so we feel like our product market fit is pretty decent here. But the concept is that, if in order to have a friendly engagement, I mean, there has to be, when you ask permission, there has to be a reward attached to that. So for us, it's, if you're willing to watch this video from a brand, then that brand is willing to pay you. And that's just that direct of a relationship is what we're all about. And then I think about the metaverse and how advertising may fit into our concepts of the metaverse as we know them now. And I think I was struggling to kind of like fit an NFT concept in the traditional, programmatic advertising landscape. And I don't think we should. I don't think we should solve for that right now, because I think that's a square peg in the round hole kind of thing. And so, but we know that NFTs will be very involved in, digital advertising in the metaverse and beyond. And so the question is, how are they additive rather than, disruptive? And so I think that's where we're at. Just because they're cool and digital advertising is huge, you can't just force them together without just creating a lot of, nonsense, really. And so, but I do think that, there's a number of ways that we could, kind of tackle this early. One of them is, we can give offers by the way of airdrops to people's wallets, and we can give them to people that we want to give them to based on their affluence. I mean, if they're a CryptoPunk owner, then we know that they have a lot of money, or at least they have a lot of money in a JPEG that they're not willing to sell. But these are the types of people that maybe some advertisers want to get in front of, and we could probably get in front of them with a coupon wrapped in an NFT. And so there's a lot of ways that you get in front of, right? Get visibility in front of with coupons or offers or whatever. And so that's a way that I think advertising can play in this. And then I also think advertising has become a little bit more about just engaging with consumers. And I think that's what's happening with the McDonald's McRib. You've got the Pepsi mic drop. You've got Bud Heritage cans or whatever. All of these they're not advertising plays. They're branding plays, but they're engaging with the consumer through this mechanism. And so there's a lot of creative ways to encourage that. I think advertising and branding sometimes are separate or disparate. I don't think they need to be. And so in this case, I think that's probably one of the best ways to continue executing. And then again, if you're buying virtual land, there's a land race for buying virtual plots. And when Adidas buys 100 of them, and then they put their huge logo on that, and everyone's looking at it from bird's eye view, that's a nice billboard for them. That's a great ad just by buying that plot and branding it. So I think it's not advertising traditional, but that's in this Web3 world that we're in. I think that is advertising. And so there's going to be a lot of creative ways to deliver, spots within. So games that have, they go to a bar in a game. Okay, Bud Light's serving. Why is okay? That's a placement, opportunity throughout these metaverses. So sure. I'm just trying to tie it back a little bit to advertising and how I see that potentially forming.
Yeah, you guys bring up a lot of good points, Lawrence. Especially you're talking about how not your keys, not your wallet, like type situation, not your asset, really giving it back. Bobby, you're talking about the whole permission thing. Re-envisioning ads. A coupon as an NFT, like go figure, right? And then Mike, you did bring up that point about these bigger brands coming in, issuing, like you buy a really nice pair of Nikes and then you get issued an NFT that you could take then to the metaverse, right? So you can have the same nice pair of shoes but in a digital way. Yeah, that's really good points. Just kind of transitioning here. How does the NFT really reshape the idea or the idea of community?
All right, great question. I think it reshapes it a lot of ways. I think that, if the mechanics are right, you can actually make money while joining a community. There's plenty of products that, people have been early community adapters of and early adopters of, where they don't participate in any of the upside. Like, the people that were like some of the first people to create a Facebook account in like 2010 or what, that era, literally saw no money from that. While they were some of the early adopters in their town where they rolled it out early. essentially you can fractionalize like the upside of a community through, an on-chain asset. And in a lot of ways, non-fungible tokens work better than fungible tokens. The liquidity of NFTs sometimes is like by design, because it's a one of one, right? Like you were talking about the CryptoPunks earlier. Essentially it's an expensive JPEG that isn't worth anything until you sell it. But when you make it so it's only a one for one, people are less willing to sell it. Essentially when you're dealing with fungible tokens, you can sell half of it, right? You can't sell half an NFT without doing something very complex. Right? So that is something that's pretty cool. So community, for example, this is what we did at Nifty. I think it was kind of like Ty, one of our founders' idea, and I came up with a little bit of it. But essentially we said, hey, the first 500 people, and we didn't tell anybody that join our Discord, we'll airdrop them an NFT. About 3 months after our Discord hit 500 people, we airdropped them an NFT, which was, worth nothing at the time. It was just an NFT. And then a couple months later, we got to a couple thousand members, and then we ended up releasing our token. And then, like, unbeknownst to all the NFT holders, we just said, hey, you'll get like early access through our platform. And the way Nifty works is essentially we verify digital assets across chain. So we just check your wallet to see if you own the specific fungible or non-fungible token like an NFT, and from there we can grant you access into different services that you are approved to go into, whether it's like a Metaverse experience, a live ticket event like we did in Miami at Art Basel, where you have to own a specific NFT to get into an event. And we do that verification process, and we do virtual events, and we do community events as well. So we're just kind of like a cross-chain authenticator. But what we did was once everybody had their NFTs, we essentially airdropped them our token. And at the time, it was worth like a significant amount. And that was like one of the ways that we rewarded our community. And they love it. And essentially those like 500 people are like fanatics now for us, because, essentially it was for free, and they essentially, it was like a high 5-figure amount that was liquid that they could turn into cash and go to Christmas, or just keep it, like whatever you want to do. So that was like a way that we did like a little experiment. But it only works if people believe in like the value of your community. Otherwise, like the token would have been worth nothing in the NFT, and we can't control that. So essentially, if your community really likes you and believes in what you're doing, you can essentially abstract some of the value to them through like a digital asset, and then they can essentially, believe that it's worth something, and it kind of does. It's funny how that works. But yeah, so that's how we did it, and I think that's kind of the future of like most Web3 products. Like look at the Uniswap airdrop. That was a big thing, and it's going to continue to grow. And I think it's just a way to kind of give a little bit back. I mean, a lot of times these are companies, these are corporations, these are projects. There's a financial motive, but you can essentially like abstract maybe like 5 to 30% of the whole project's value straight to your community, which is something no big company does at all today. Not even $1. Like Apple, biggest company in the world, doesn't give everybody who has an iPhone $5 for Christmas. I think hopefully that'll change in the future, and the mechanics of Web3 allow it to be a lot easier, because you don't need people's mailing address, you don't need to KYC, you just need their wallet address, and you can give them value. So I think that's going to be like the biggest shift if we can continue to build Web3. And I think that's going to be the big difference between like Web3 and like Meta, where essentially they're not going to give any value at all, while Web3 companies, like if they're successful and they want to stay successful, they have to give back some of the value they accrue directly back to their community.
I think it really is a great way for projects that bootstrap their community, right? Because for us, right, we have this feature on EthSign called a Sign Pass, where you can basically purchase a Sign Pass NFT and basically don't have to own any native tokens on that specific chain, whether that be BSC, Polygon, or Phantom, or all the chains we deploy to, or Ethereum, if you own the Ethereum DeFi passport. But if you own that piece of NFT, you sign on EthSign, you don't have to prepay, you don't have to pay any gas fees, basically. Because if you're an NFT owner, we leverage Biconomy, which is a protocol that aggregates all the transaction together and lets us to prepay the gas fees for you. For you, it's a seamless signing experience. But on the other hand, you have projects like, so I'm talking beyond the social NFT projects, right? Where you can like own an NFT, go to some cool events and socialize and network with all the cool Web3 native and non-Web3 native cool people. There's this project called the Ethereum Name Service, which we are also probably partners of. So they are so you have traditional domain names on Web2, right? .com. But on Web3, everything's .eth because everything's built on ETH. So the .eth names really have a lot of tremendous value in them because for these dApps, right, they are probably going to use these names. And for big brands that want to enter Web3, like Budweiser, they just purchased beer.eth for 50 Ethereum, which is how much is that? Like $250,000 about in fiat money. Yeah. So yeah, you're already seeing a big wave of adoption for Web3 domain names, and Ethereum Name Service is a project that issues these domain names in terms of NFTs that are sold on OpenSea and their own protocol, where you can purchase Web3.eth domain names, and when you own that NFT, you are part of the ENS community where you can communicate to each other like, okay, so I own this.eth, and can you help me advocate? Can you help me advertise for it if there's any buyer for it? And these names inherently, since they have a value, right? Because you see a big wave of industries and people come to Web3 and want Web3 native identity and company identity, and per ENS, and ENS name is a DNS domain as well, so it's convertible to Web2 domains, and they also have reverse resolution where you can associate your ENS alias with a Web2 native address, right? So your address is a long characters, but with your ENS name, it could be, say, Mike.eth, Potter.eth, Kevin.eth, anything like that, or Chainlink.eth. It's pretty simple, and once you put that in, it translates it to the address, so you don't have to go through all the trouble for sending someone money or receiving money from someone like that, or for us, right, sending a document to someone that has a long address. Instead, you can just put in his or her ENS alias. That's pretty convenient. So inherently, these NFTs has a lot of value in them, and the community, they help each other out and get this concept and help each other advertise their ENS domains they own, right? So I think that's a really cool aspect to it, and you have many use cases just beyond the social and the ENS names. I'm sure in the future people will come up with more names to leverage the tremendous ability that NFTs has to give.
Yeah, and also back to Lawrence's point that the ENS community got a really significant airdrop as well.
Yes.
So it's just like this, this what's forming are, these Discord channels with mods that are just so fired up about the project. You've got tokens that people can tip with throughout the Discord. You can have private channels by virtue of owning, one of the more expensive models or whatever within that community. Then you're in a private channel, which is dropping alpha. I mean, you've got this ecosystem within Discord where, and also just the concept of the airdrops, again, that's like a very Web3 principle, which is give back, right? Like take some of the DAO or take some of the endowment, as it were, and reinvest into the people that got you here. And it's just, it's funneling back to the people. I missed that, I think, by like a week, that airdrop. It was significant. I think it was like,
a lot.
It was like an ETH or two of value, yeah.
Probably some people got a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So I think I missed that one by a little bit. So what was the original question that was being
The original
tested?
question was how NFTs are shaping the community.
So the one thing I would say about this is there's a quote in, I don't know if any of you have heard of Subducks. It's Stephen. It's a 10,000 generative art PFP project on OpenSea. by this artist by the name of Frankie Nines, and all of them are 1 out of 1, and there's rarity scores and whatever. He's built a token in sort of his own metaverse out of it, but the token goes by the name of Vault, and actually I might mention this later. But what was it again?
How NFTs are building
the community.
The shaping
so there's some people in that. So that Discord's very active, and there's people in that Discord, and one of the quotes that's come out of there is, when the floor prices are going up and down, and people are getting worried about like, what is the floor of this Supdux collection? One of the mods in there is famous for saying like, the floor is the friends you make along the way. Because what happens in these Discords is that people, they actually do find their home in a lot of ways, their digital home, whether this is like, their metaverse existence with their friends. But like in these communities where there's only 10,000 people that could potentially own, somehow creates this sense of like belongingness and concern for one another, and just this like, we're on this thing together. And it's a very, very cool thing to see, and I found that to be the case in a lot of these. Floors are going up and down. Our values are sideways and down more than they're up. But it's just fun to see who kind of like rallies or who falls apart. I mean, these are all microcosms. Each of these Discord channels are microcosms of the world, and you can see all these little aspects of the world sort of injecting itself into how things go. But I think that it is creating communities. For some people, it's a real strong sense of belongingness that I don't know they've ever had. You know what I mean? It's a place for them to call home, and I think that's, to me, I've seen a lot of that, and I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'd say that you guys are on point. Just speaking to that, I think having that inclusiveness is huge. To Lawrence's point as well, having those gateways more or less into a clandestine community, right? You're not allowed in unless you own something that is from the community. So that's almost as if like it's your pass, right? Your right to passage, right? And then of course, the whole airdrop thing with the ENS and owning your. We all felt like we were part of the group, right? Yeah, when you get that.
Those of you that got it, yes.
Being around,
Jerk.
Partaking in the fun. So I'm sure a question that's all on our minds: when is the metaverse gonna get here?
Well, I think it's kind of already here.
It's here?
Yeah, I think it's already here. The metaverse. The definition is like kind of constantly evolving. I mean, you can make the argument that the metaverse was here when video games were created. I was kind of an early gamer when I was a lot younger, kind of like in junior high, and I'm kind of upset that Web3 wasn't there because I spent a lot of time there and made literally
$0.
Zero money, like nothing, like
all that Tony Hawk.
Yeah. Wasted 2-3 summers playing World of Warcraft and made no money. So I think the metaverse is here. My definition of the metaverse is like a Web3 metaverse, something where you can actually make money, something where you get some value back for your time spent. So I think the building blocks of this like Web3 metaverse are like already here, and we've seen like very successful early iterations of that. Probably Axie Infinity is like probably one of like the biggest examples of like playing to earn. But I think there's gonna be a lot of different variations of the metaverse, some games, some events, some like concerts, some like even like meetups and things like that. So I don't think it's all going to be gaming, but I think the technology to like build the metaverse is like now pretty much here. So now it's just like who essentially is going to build the strongest communities and participate in this. It's kind of a battle between like corporate America and like traditional companies and like this decentralized international like for the people community. Like one of the things like Nifty, like it's 80% of our communities overseas, which is very interesting to me. It wasn't planned. That's just how it is. And we have no control over that. And people can arbitrage their currency depending where they are. A lot of times like an ETH in America is worth a lot more in different places, like significantly more. So you see this like fun like arbitration of like people transmitting value and extracting a lot more depending where they are. And I think the metaverse is here and it's going to continue to grow. I think I think probably by the end of 2022, like we're gonna start seeing things that are blowing our minds. One of the experiences we saw in Art Basel was like what they call like 4D experience, and apparently the technology to see 3D displays without glasses is going to be rolling out at the end of next year. We met one of the guys that's building it, and they're getting the license to all like the Hollywood film studios, because essentially they made a display where it's 3D without glasses. So the world's like about to get a lot crazier. And I think like our best chance to like hang on and like stay anywhat human is like at least capture some value before we're all like in the metaverse, like and living in pods. So like I think it's just gonna be like the best thing we could do is like try to extract some value along the way, make some friends, like you said, along the way, and like try to keep a little bit of humanity before like we're all just like strapped in via the Matrix. So, yeah.
Ready Player One.
Ready Player One. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's already here. More people just need to explore about it. There's already metaverse games out there that are they're not perfect, but they're pretty immersive, right? You have Sandbox, Decentraland, Crypto Voxels, where you can actually explore in-game features such as casinos, shops, entertainment centers, right? And you have actually real-world businesses that are built within those games that you can explore and buy stuff from it. So that's pretty cool. And with Crypto Voxels, I'm not sure with Decentraland, you can actually put on VR headsets and go explore. So that's something that's never been done before. I think the virtual worlds are here. It's just a matter of time where we get a much enhanced experience. And by much enhanced, I mean you go into the game and you don't feel anything different than actual worlds, right? Like you put on a VR, you see everything just like what we see right now. So that's the idealistic metaverse. But right now the metaverse isn't bad. It's here. You can go experience it. You can go explore about it, and there's a lot to be explored in those games. And people always say the earlier you are, the better incentives you get in the long term, right? Like the early internet days. So like I think it's a good thesis, and over the years, technology is developing. With more and more advanced hardwares, you're gonna have a much more immersive experience. And like Lauren said, at that point, you will want to enjoy as much as the real world experience, since you can't really tell the difference of the two when that happens. And yeah.
Yeah, so I think the metaverse is here, I think, but at the very, very early stages, in which we don't even really know what that means, because like the sandbox, like we keep seeing like teases of things like these VX'd NFTs in the sandbox, whether they're cyberkongs or whatever else, but we don't really know what that means or when the full interaction levels are going to take place and all that. So I think it's here, and I think there's multiple metaverses. I think there was a question from last time, which is there one or multiple? And I think, of course, there's multiple, but maybe there would be like this one overarching like sort of solar system of them or whatever. But I think the most interesting thing about the fact that they are here, the sandboxes, Decentralands, etc. What's interesting to see from my perspective is just how do we bridge between them. I think that's so you have this entity, with a lot of investment dollars from a certain, they're encouraging them to build it in this way, and they're encouraging them to build it in this way. And so how are we going to interact, or at least bridge our assets across, so like our NFTs? How do they go between the metaverses? There's one example of that again, early days right now with this concept, but there's a project called The Littles, which is on OpenSea right now. There's a guy named Will who's a NFT influencer that has created this project. And what's cool about what he's done is kind of the early stages of bringing in other projects' utility into The Littles. And so like Supdux has Volt, and Cyberkongs has Banana. These are the tokens that you can earn by staking your Supdux or your cybercongs. And when you get those, you can obviously trade them, or you can use them within those ecosystems. But what the Littles has done is allowed for not only Volt and Banana and the Kaiju Kings currency or whatever token to be used, but now all of 3 of those tokens can be used within the Littles ecosystem, right? So I think it's just this, starting to be able to accept Visa in more countries is the idea. It's like there's all kinds of currencies. Generally speaking, they're all finite within their ecosystem or their metaverse. But now what we're seeing is we're starting to bridge between them. We're starting to see how does that work, and I think that's really cool. And then again, like, we all need to understand what it means. We need to put on a VR set and watch somebody run through the sandbox. I think until we say, like, it's here. So
Awesome. Sounds like the metaverse is here. So what are you guys most excited about in crypto right now? Like, what's something that you're super excited about?
I think that we've seen the largest adoption since crypto was created, right? Since Bitcoin, we've seen the largest adoption this year. I think that's really something to be excited about. I think that the technology has grown a lot since this space has emerged. I'm definitely most excited about more data bridges being built, because especially for us, how do you transfer a document from Binance Smart Chain to someone that's on Avalanche, right? That's really something that's haven't been done before, and I'm really excited to see the developments on that side. So, as more bridges being built, you're really going to have this tremendous networks of blockchains where they're interoperable to everybody, instead of right now they're kind of separated worlds where they can't communicate, but they exist. They're literally right there. And you have dApps that have to literally deploy on every single one of these chains just for their entire ecosystem users to get to know you, right? So that's not something smart to do. So in the long term, I think we will see, and what I'm really excited about to see is that every single blockchain has an interoperable gateway to each other, and have a really decentralized the web around the world. So that's really I think something we might be able to see in the next 5 to 10 years, and that's when we really achieve the concept of Web3. And like he said, you're going to see interoperable gateways between the games, and you're not going to see those gateways without data bridges. So that's really something we're trying to build upon together. Like Chainlink, like EthSign, we're all trying to be more interoperable. We're trying to build our applications on multiple blockchain networks, not just Ethereum, right?
What are you most excited about, Lance?
Okay. There's so much to be excited about in crypto, honestly. I guess kind of like the biggest thing is like how many people or how big it's getting. It was like super depressing going to conferences in the bear market. It was like the same like 200 people. Like, honestly, it was so small. Like, I was able to like spend like an hour hanging out with CZ alone in Singapore, in 2018. And we went to Art Basel and DecentralCon, and it was just packed. It was, I don't know, 10,000 people, 15. And right when you think crypto like reaches its like upper limit, like nobody new is gonna join, no new technology, like the industry just like compounds, and it's like, hey, NFTs are here, and there's a whole new demographic. There's like artists, there's like every demographic that you never saw at crypto conferences are like now in it. And I think we'll keep seeing that. It's just like this technology is so like at its core like revolutionary that essentially like it can support anybody who wants to get into it. And sometimes like the space isn't ready for those people, but now we essentially can catch probably like a whole 2x on the entire crypto market cap size just from like this whole NFT era. And now it seems like there's going to be this like metaverse era and probably like a whole gaming era, and then it'll probably move into like the physical asset. And, it's just going to keep going. And obviously it's kind of like a bull market right now, so like spirits are high, but even like the top of this bull market is 5 to 10 times bigger than the previous, not just in price, but in like actual wallet amounts, actual institutions. Like that was like the meme a couple years ago, like institutions are going to get in, but they, like that was like a meme, and now it's like no, like BlackRock's coming in, like Michael Saylor, public companies, like sovereign wealth funds are like investing hundreds of millions a month into like this emerging asset class. So I think I'm most excited is like if you can create your own opportunities in this space. Like there's really no gatekeepers. Like there's truly not. And anything you want to do in this space, like you can do it yourself, or you can meet somebody that will help you. So I think that's what's really cool in the traditional world. There's so many gatekeepers in every way, depending on what school you went to or like where you grew up or your language. But in crypto, it's like you can do anything you want. So that's what I find the most exciting. And like, at our company, we've had like 8 people leave the traditional world and come full time in crypto this year alone, like completely leave the whole thing. And the only way they got to like work with us is they just asked, and they were like, built their own position because it's a centralized company. So it's like kind of just show up and like just do something. So I think like that spirit of like camaraderie that you can like jump in for a shared goal, as long as like the vision of the project has a big enough North Star that everybody can believe in, then you can just like keep adding people. So that's what the most exciting thing about crypto to me is just that it just keeps growing, and there's like I don't really see like any limit anytime soon, not even close. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Awesome. Thanks, Lawrence. Bobby?
Yeah, I think for me, thinking about this from like the consumer perspective, Web3 is all about empowering the individual and rewarding them along the way and creating micro income streams as they go about their business. And I think that's one of the things that we've done is we haven't created a walled garden where people have to come into the permission network. We're out in the in Chrome and Chrome browser extension, and we're trying to be where people are. In fact, the DSP will be delivering ads on Forbes or on CNN, at which point you engage with it, and then it pops you into an experience where your Web3 wallet can accept the ASK for engaging with the brand. But for me, it's that, like, how well do we do that? How well do everybody else in this space affect that change in order to realize this promise of the consumer is getting their due, right? Like, get your cut, like it's your time. And so the idea of aggregating all these micro income streams, of us paying people to engage with brands rather than us taking the money, because we would be Facebook if we were doing that. Mm-hmm. And everybody else that's out there with these platforms and programs that are set up and ready to go for people to earn passively or even more actively, but bringing all those in and actually making somebody feel wealthier or have more value because of some good decisions they made in the space. I think I'm most excited to see that come to life.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. It's great visions, honestly. I'm really excited about the metaverse and crypto in general as well. I think there's a lot of opportunities taking back things that were otherwise not traditionally owned by individuals. So yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I wanted to open it up to questions,
Sure.
if that's okay. Questions from the audience? Yeah.
One sec. Let me get you on mic, sorry. That was quick. That was a really quick Q&A.
She's like, I'm on.
I've been waiting for this. Thank you, guys. I think this question may be for Bobby or Lawrence or all three of you. Feel free to choose. I am wondering, for smaller brands such as like Amazon sellers, we all know, I assume Amazon has third-party sellers. How would they fit in this NFT world? Because I understand somebody like Chanel, it would be very easy for them to put out an NFT, right? But for smaller brands, why would they do it? What's the attraction?
It's a good question.
Because it's very early.
Yeah,
so
well,
what would be the selling point for them to even get into something like this?
So my suggestion at the moment would be we've got to learn a little bit more about how they work well with bigger brands in order to figure out what we need to extract in order to make it effective for maybe brands with no names. Because I think a lot of the sellers are really, the way that they operate and the way that they're able to get a sale is entirely within the Amazon ecosystem. In other words, like, you wouldn't be able to know this seller outside of that ecosystem, because it's a lot of times it's like mom and pop plastics and that's the name of their brand. And it's a storefront within Amazon. So I wouldn't suggest, that we start there. I think we would have a lot of learnings to do with the big brands and how they deliver them for value before we would go into, because in theory, from an elementary, sort of standpoint, the brand is kind of what drives the value initially. So like when I said, an example of Orange Theory Fitness wanting to drop, airdrop NFTs as, redemptions for a free month of Orange Theory Fitness to all the CryptoPunk holders, right? If we wanted to do that as an ad campaign or a coupon campaign, that would be something, but that requires that Orange Theory is recognizable to put onto an NFT to drop. So I think we'd have to learn more so that we could apply these learnings into like brands that aren't as recognizable.
Because what I'm curious of is, how do we reverse engineer that, because it's so new, so we don't have to wait till all the big brands get there? What if there's a way to help this little brands, with the help of NFTs, get to be the next Chanel, get to be the next Orange Theory? That's what I want to know.
I think that big brands are already doing advertisement in the Metaverse games, right? But small brands are not. So when you actually start doing advertisements, people see you are one of the big brands because you're doing it. Since there's literally only Nike, Adidas, and such brands that are doing in-game advertisements, right? And in the Metaverse, there's this group of users that see what's going on in-game, and they go to the real world and think about it, it's not only in-game advertisement. People actually go out and talk about you because you're in the Metaverse. That's how it works. And some news talk about you, some people talk about you, and you achieve actually more network value in aggregate versus you actually just do real world advertisements, probably with the same amount of money.
Yeah, and just like to add on to what they said, I mean, the way I would think about it is to like sell something, you just need a buyer. So, you can have like two options: sell NFTs to your existing customer base, or sell NFTs to the people that are native in NFTs. So I don't think you necessarily have to wait for like big brands. You just have to figure out a product that's like marketable and people would want it. So you could see like what else is selling, or you could join a community that people are buying NFTs. Or if you already have an existing consumer base, you have to convince them that NFTs are valuable. So you either have to sell to like people that don't believe in NFTs but believe in you, or people that believe in NFTs but don't believe in you.
Okay, my last thing, and then I'll share. So my thinking is, because I help a lot of Amazon sellers just attract like organic traffic and stuff. What if, let's say I helped an Amazon seller like create some NFTs for them and have them be the starting point? Because what happens on Amazon is like, you sell a black hat, right? There's 1,000 other sellers, they're selling the exact same thing. Like, what's different about you? What if NFTs are the way to make that brand different?
Yeah, and to do that, you would have to create a collection in the NFT space to draw attention back to the Amazon store. So the Amazon store would be the brand that launches a collection on OpenSea.
Okay.
So you would have to be creative on the utility and the art on the NFT side of things to pull people into what you're selling on Amazon. Because you can't do NFTs on Amazon, right?
No, I mean Amazon is so strange, but I mean if you have some time to talk after
Yeah,
this,
sure.
we'd love to. So I don't take the floor.
problem.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi guys. I have a lot of information in the crypto world. Everyone know that what happened in the cryptocurrency. Right now we have a lot of dominance and N. And so what do you think about Metaverse? This is a trend or this is a future?
The metaverse, sorry?
Yes.
What would you say?
Yes.
Is it a trend or is it the future?
Yes.
Oh, it's future, right? It's
I would say the future,
Yeah.
definitely.
Future.
Yeah,
In
for
the
sure.
past, we don't know. We don't hear about the NFT, right? The whole world just interested about NFT around over 2 years, and I don't know about in the future.
If
You-
it's
you-
gonna
you-
last.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of like aspects within the NFT world, right? Like it's, you have the main names, you have people that sell art collections, you have people that sell community projects, and you have utility NFT tokens that actually has utilities attached to it. So I guess like, which track are you more bullish on? That's the real question.
And if the whole world interested and use the platform, the Metaverse, and how about the exchange?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know the real answer is, but what we see is that how many people in the world right now are adopted in crypto? Right, not that many, 100 probably, maybe more than that, with some areas and some areas whatnot. But we're not trying to like convince everybody to use Chainlink, to use EthSign, the service. Like you can't. It's impossible. Some people are gonna stay in Web 2. It's one way or the other, decentralized or decentralized. We're not trying to bring everybody from traditional Web 2 world to Web 3. Just like when they first started the internet, not everybody was gonna get on it. You still have 70, 80-year-olds that don't know how to use the internet, right? But I'm saying the growth is really big because you see the potential of what it could go to, because only probably 2-3% of the people actually adopt the service. And what if you see 50%? Okay, that's like almost 50% growth.
Awesome.
Any other questions? There you go.
Ty?
Easy one. In 5 years, what's more valuable, digital real estate or physical?
Well, I guess in terms of like growth from here, like in terms of percentage.
Trade land, digital land or real land?
Well, I think real land's always going to be more valuable, or well, valuable at least. But I think in terms of like percentage gains, probably digital. I don't think you're going to see like a plot of land in San Diego pull up 500x in the next 5 years, but I think you'll see some like early adopters of different digital communities buying a waterfront, beach condo that they might be able to sell for 500x in 5 years. So I'd say, I was talking to a buddy that's into real estate, and I said that doesn't. It used to interest me, but it wouldn't interest me being a landlord in the real world anymore. There's too many risk. I think digital would be cooler. So possibly bigger gains would probably be in digital land than physical over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I'd say depends on what game and what location you're talking about with real world, right? Like say you have a really good game, limited amount of lands, but you have a lot of users. Those lands are probably worth more than others. Real estates are all about location. So in the real estates, you have an earth, right? And you have an earth that's limited to so many cities that are heavily populated, and there's so many lands per city, say like New York, Miami, and LA or San Diego. You've seen property prices constantly go up. Why? Because there's a huge demand for it. Why? People keep coming into the city and they want to look for a place to live. So those property prices go up. Same as Metaverse games, where you have really great games that attract a lot of traction, attract a lot of business value and a lot of users. And those land prices eventually will be worth more because they actually bring tangible business values, right? Whether that be outside the Web3 world or inside of Metaverse world, that's real value. So as long as there's traction, there's value. And when there's value, there's growth. So yeah, it's all about location.
I would say in aggregate, I think physical is going to far outweigh digital. However, digital has an infinite amount of space that it could occupy. I think it's going to be a demand side concept. So if the demand can keep up with, I mean, because the supply is actually pretty unlimited. So, but I think that it's going to be, the answer is going to be physical. The question is, how close can digital get?
Great answers. Thank you, guys.
All right, we're gonna do one more question, and I'm sorry, she already had her hand up. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so one more question. Here you go.
Hi, do you guys see NFT marketplaces and social media merging with each other at one point? I find myself going on OpenSea when I purchase my NFTs and wanting to leave comments on other pages' NFTs and wanting to like them. I know there's a favorite aspect on there, but do you see the NFT marketplace being the new social media?
Definitely. And you know, I think it's pretty easy for them to do. It's good that you bring that point. You know, I think it's pretty easy for them to link some social media links to theirs. So you have wallets that allow you to log in with Web2 identities, like Twitter, like Google social platform accounts, and use that Web2 identity to generate a Web3 identity for you, so that eventually you kind of associate your Web2 identity with the NFT platform. I think technically it's super easy to do. Wouldn't take long for them to do it. Maybe some platforms are already doing it now. OpenSea, maybe.
Yeah, and just like to add, I think Instagram announced they've been working on their NFT stuff for about a year now. So I think you're gonna, that's I don't know how they're gonna do it, because it's like the antithesis of like their company of like giving value back to people. But yeah, I think they're definitely gonna merge, and I think any like type of like digital content people create, more and more people are gonna move that content, whether it's Instagram photo or a piece of art, on chain to an NFT, so they can capture some of the value. So I think it's definitely gonna merge, and probably sooner than we think.
Yeah, and I think that merge concept is actually how I see it going. So like, you have Twitter about to release the feature that, verifies somebody's PFP as their own by checking their wallet address and making sure that it's theirs. I think, so that means that they're sort of moving more in a direction of an NFT, maybe marketplace, and that's a social network, whereas you have the NFT marketplace moving more towards in the social way. So I think like, you've got the likes, now you're connected kind of with your Twitter and Instagram, like through your platform. But I think that if they start to add features, right, like comment, like, share, a feed, which some of the wallet aggregators, Metalink, these guys are doing that kind of thing within. So your ETH wallet, you can see all your value, you can see the feeds of your communities. So I think there's definitely a merging, whereas like there's not going to be just social networks and NFT marketplaces. I think, there's going to be, one of them will be mostly this, but a lot of that. And so there's going to be a bit of a gray kind of scale over them.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming out, guys. We got some merch and stuff, I think, some stickers. Have at it. And thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, guys.